He came crawling out of nowhere, silent, sunken, and shackled to a tree like some ghost who never left the war. The dog froze first, like it knew. What happened next didn't just rattle the deputy. It cracked open something this town buried decades ago. And what the hound did after that? It didn't just uncover a manit, uncovered a memory they tried to forget. If you think you've seen strange stories, think again. Hit subscribe and type respect if you feel the weight of what's coming. The hound halted mid-stride at the tree line, nostrils flaring, fur bristling like wire. Morning fog still hugged the forest floor when Deputy Elijah North gave the leash a nudge. The Belgian Malinois wouldn't budge. He stood stone still, tail rigid, ears locked forward like he saw something the rest of the world missed. "Echo," she whispered, but the dog didn't so much as twitch. Instead, he stepped forward once, then again, paused, and then she saw him. At the base of a leaning cedar, partially buried under a wet quilt of leaves and needles, was a man crumpled, motionless, lashed to the trunk with plastic ties. His head drooped. His skin had the color of old wax. Hair stuck flat to his skull. For one breathless second, she thought he was already gone. But then she saw it, the faintest tremble of his chest. His lips were moving, but there was no sound. She dropped to her knees, radio already crackling. "Sheriff, I've got a live male, Caucasian, elderly, bountifully near marker 19. Requesting EMS as soon as possible. Hypothermic, maybe worse." She yanked off her coat and wrapped it around his shoulders. He didn't react, didn't flinch. His stare never met hers, just drifted out, blank and hollow, like he hadn't landed fully in this world yet. But as she gently lifted his collar, searching for wounds, her fingers brushed clothes patch, faded, barely holding on. But she read it clear. 99th Paratrooper Regiment. Her stomach turned cold. This broken, shivering man was military. Sheriff Donnie Brooks arrived 15 minutes later, boots muddy and face carved with concern. The EMTs had already started cutting the restraints, trying to stabilize him on the stretcher. The man still hadn't spoken, but he clutched the deputy's coat like a lifeline. "Any id?" Brooks asked. "Not a thing," Eliza replied. "No wallet, no tags, no phone, just this." She handed over the patch, now loose from the collar. Donnie held it like it was evidence from a dream. Echo, the canine, sat silently beside them, staring at the forest like he was waiting for something to crawl out of it, like he knew something hadn't ended yet. By 8:45 a.m., the whispers had already reached the bakery, the mechanic shop, and Mrs. Paley's kitchen window. That's how towns like Alder Hollow worked. Word traveled faster than trucks. An old man had been found tied up in the pines, looked like a ghost, looked like guilt. Some folks swore he was just a lost hobo. Others murmured he wore something military, something from another time. By the time Sheriff Brooks returned to the station, there were 2 news vans camped outside. He waved them off. "No comment, no name, not yet. We don't know what we're dealing with." Inside, Eliza nursed a bitter cup of coffee, hands shaking. She couldn't shake the image of his eyes unfocused, unblinking, distant, like he hadn't quite made peace with being alive again. They'd taken him to County Memorial, listed as stable but largely unresponsive. No ID, just bruises in the patch. "He didn't wander out there," Eliza muttered, standing in the doorway of Donnie's office. "Somebody put him there, on purpose." Brooks didn't argue. He nodded. Towns like this remembered faces, but no one could recall this man. At least, not yet. Out in the station's back kennel, Echo hadn't moved an inch. Refused food. Refused to rest. Every time someone opened the rear door, the dog stared toward the trees again. "He wants to go back," Eliza said. Brooks looked up slowly, then let him. It was a night shift nurse who spotted it first. A tattoo. Tiny, almost vanished, curled along the inside of the man's left wrist, etched just beneath the wrist bone, almost hidden beneath faded skin, was a tattoo, a date, then a name. Maddox Elijah T. The nurse spotted it. She told the attending, who told the charge, who dialed the sheriff's station without blinking. Within the hour, Sheriff Donnie Brooks was standing in room 214 at Alder County General. Elijah lay unmoving, hooked to an IV that dripped slower than time. A dark bruise painted the side of his temple. His arms looked like they'd been dragged across gravel or worse. Donnie eased into the chair beside him. "I don't know if you can hear me," he said, voice low, "but I'm going to talk like you can." He exhaled, pulled a small notepad from his coat. "Your name's Elijah Maddox," he began. "We pulled your Army file. 99th Paratrooper Regiment. Retired Staff Sergeant. 2 tours in Vietnam." He paused. "Bronze Star. Multiple citations for valor. Still no movement. But facts were only facts. They didn't answer the bigger question, the one clawing at the town's throat. What the hell happened to you? Who left you out there like trash?" Donnie unfolded a wrinkled clipping from his breast pocket. Old newspaper. 4th of July parade. Circa a decade ago. Right there on the fire truck float, holding the flag, Elijah Maddox. Back then, he stood straight, wore the uniform like it meant something. Back then, people saluted when he walked by. Donnie flipped the paper. An address. A weathered house off Birch Hollow Lane. He dispatched Deputy North to check it out. The place was still there, technically. Paint gone to peel, shutters hanging loose like drunks after a fight. The mailbox was missing. The driveway cracked. Inside? Emptiness. Someone had bailed fast. No pictures on the walls, just frames with faded outlines. A ripped-up couch. In the corner, a cane snapped in half like it lost the will to stand. Back at County General, Elijah stirred. Just a flicker. His eyes cracked open, and his lips moved. Elijah leaned close. His voice was gravel. "Did Echo find me?" The next morning, Donnie drove the K9 back into the forest. Echo launched from the SUV before the brakes settled. No leash, no orders, just pure, silent instinct. Donnie jogged after him, chest thudding harder than he'd admit. The woods by daylight felt more honest, but no less eerie. The oak still stood, scarred with memory. The earth around it held the prints of terror branches broken, soil disturbed. Echo sniffed once, then again, and then bolted east, vanishing into brush like a ghost with a scent. Donnie cursed and hurried after him, branches clawing at his arms. 30 yards deeper, the dog froze, paws planted, rigid. Donnie pushed past a bramble, and there, half buried in leaves and needles, was a duffel bag. He knelt, unzipped it. Inside, a tin of stale crackers, a crumpled black and white military photo, a key, and a thick envelope. He opened it carefully. Legal papers, reverse mortgage agreement, signed 2 years ago. Elijah Maddox, and a second signature. Corbin Maddox. Donnie read aloud. Eliza had already pulled Corbin's file back at the station. Elijah's nephew, his only surviving kin, filed for guardianship 6 months prior. Moved into the Birch Hollow house not long after that, then sold it. Which meant the place wasn't abandoned, it was taken. Which meant Elijah didn't get lost. He got erased. Donnie stood frozen, holding the photo. Elijah, decades younger, arms looped around 2 other grinning soldiers. On the back, in fading ink, "We made it home. That's what matters." Echo let out a low, breathy whine and nudged the corner of the bag. Donnie looked down at him. "You're not just a tracker," he murmured. "You're the only one he trusted to come back for him." The dog gave a single wag, sharp and sure. Donnie's jaw tightened. "He left the trail," he said softly, "but someone made damn sure he'd never find his way back." He zipped the bag shut, slung it over his shoulder, and started walking back toward the cruiser, back toward town, and back to the people who thought this story was buried forever. There are people in town who pretend they didn't hear what they heard, didn't see what they saw. Sheriff Donnie Brooks wasn't one of them. That's why he was sitting across from Corbin Maddox at the corner booth of the Pineside gas station cafe. Corbin looked like life had treated him to an all-you-can-eat buffet and a 7% interest rate. Pressed polo shirt, Bluetooth stuck in his ear like it belonged there, key fob to a brand-new Bronco tossed casually on the table. When he saw Donnie, he smiled like a man who didn't have a reason to sweat. "Sheriff, what brings you by?" Donnie didn't smile back. "I found your uncle." Corbin's face twitched. Uncle Eli? I didn't even know he was missing. Donnie slid the reverse mortgage agreement across the table with the same ease you'd hand someone their own obituary. You knew enough to help him sign his house away. Corbin gave a lazy shrug. He wasn't all there. Hadn't been for years. He told me he wanted to move on. He also tell someone to zip tie him to a tree and let him rot? The smile vanished. Donnie leaned in. You sold his house. Took guardianship. Power of attorney. But you missed one thing. Corbin blinked. What's that? A man like Elijah Maddox doesn't vanish without leaving something behind. And apparently, what he left behind was a dog with a memory better than yours. He tapped the worn photograph they'd found in the duffel. Ever serve, Corbin? Corbin scoffed. No offense, Sheriff, but I didn't see the point. Donnie didn't blink. He did. 2 tours, saved lives, built that house with his own 2 hands, and you walked him out of it like he was yesterday's trash. Corbin's jaw tightened. That's a serious accusation. No, Donnie said flatly. It's a fact. You didn't just rob a man. You robbed a soldier. You robbed this town of someone it should have remembered. Corbin stood abruptly, clutching the envelope. You've got no proof. Donnie rose, too, calm as a quiet storm. Maybe not the kind that plays in courtrooms, but I've got 100 veterans who marched with him, men who know exactly who Elijah Maddox is, and by tonight, the whole town will know what you did. Corbin hesitated. What do you want? Donnie's voice never raised. You're going to return every cent. You're going to transfer the house back, and you're going to do it without a peep. Corbin let out a short, nervous laugh. And if I don't? Donnie tilted his head toward the window. Corbin turned. Outside, across the road, motorcycles lined the curb chrome and thunder waiting. Men in patched vests stood side by side. No shouting, no signs, just waiting. Donnie picked up the photo, slipped it into his pocket. If you don't, he said softly, I'll let them do the talking. The paperwork moved faster than gossip. By Friday, the deed to the Birch Hollow house was back in Elijah Maddox's name. Corbin didn't show up to fight. He didn't even show his face. Word was, he left town before the printer ink on the transfer cooled. No apology, no press, just disappearance. But the town? The town remembered. By Sunday, a flyer appeared on the church bulletin board. Community Clean Up Birch Hollow Home. Saturday, 8 a.m. No name, no signature, no call for volunteers. But that morning, the driveway was packed. Old neighbors brought paint buckets and rakes. High schoolers hauled furniture to the curb, sorting what could be salvaged. The man from Alder Hardware dropped off a load of supplies with a note taped to the bucket. Tell him it's from Nate, 2nd Platoon, 69th Infantry. Elijah sat on the porch, still pale, still recovering but upright. Echo lay curled at his feet, head on his paws, like nothing had ever happened, like he'd never left. Katie, the nurse who'd been with him since his first night at the hospital, knelt beside him and handed him a mug of chamomile. You okay with all this? Elijah looked out at teens repainting the porch swing, at a boy patching shingles in borrowed boots. He nodded once. I didn't think anyone remembered. They didn't, Katie said quietly, but they do now. Elijah reached into the pocket of his flannel shirt and pulled out the photo once again. It was the same photo from the duffel, edges worn like memory itself. Elijah turned it over, pulled a pen from Katie's clipboard, and scribbled something on the back. He handed it to her. What's this? Just a reminder, he murmured. For next time, I forget. She smiled and read it silently. Not lost, just quiet. A little ways down the block, someone fired up a grill. Someone else set out folding chairs. It wasn't a celebration exactly, but it felt like something had found its rightful place. As if silence itself had been straightened and set gently back on the shelf. Just before sunset, Sheriff Brooks pulled up in his cruiser. He walked over slowly. You ready for what comes next? He asked. Elijah gave him a thin smile. I already survived the hard part, he said. Now I just want to live where my boots still know the floor. The town didn't do big ceremonies, not often. When it did, it usually meant a ribbon, a plaque, and maybe a lukewarm sheet cake. But this time was different. The gathering was held on a Sunday afternoon, under the courthouse's old ash tree, the same place they honored the town's fallen every Memorial Day. This time, there were no mourning flags or black sashes, no bugles, just folding chairs, soft voices, and a breeze that didn't interrupt. Elijah sat front row, clean flannel shirt, fresh shave, same boots. Echo sat at his side, vest crisp, badge polished like a medal. Sheriff Brooks stepped up to the mic. He didn't speak long. "There are some people who never ask to be remembered," he said. "They don't wave their arms, they don't make noise, they serve. And sometimes the world moves too fast to keep their names close." He looked down at Elijah. "This town forgot someone, and today we say we won't do that again." He turned, lifted a plaque from a stand, and handed it to Elijah. The engraving was simple. Elijah T. Maddox, 99th Paratrooper Division. Not lost, just quiet. The crowd rose not to cheer, not to applaud, just to stand. One by one, they approached him. Some clasped his hand, others simply nodded. A few placed tokens beside his chair: a folded flag, a brass pin, an old black and white photo with curled edges. Then came Echo's moment. A young deputy stepped forward, knelt down, and pulled a small velvet box from his coat. Inside was a custom K9 medallion etched with quiet honor. He read aloud, "For service beyond command, and loyalty that never blinked." Echo didn't know the words, but when the crowd bowed their heads, he gently lowered his own onto Elijah's boot, eyes closed, breath slow. It didn't need music. It didn't need headlines. It just needed to be seen. That night, the porch light at the Birch Hollow house glowed, not because someone forgot to flip the switch, but because someone finally made it home. Elijah rocked slowly in the chair his father had carved by hand, decades before the world demanded he carry a rifle. Echo lay curled on the top step, no vest, no rank, just a dog with tired eyes and a full belly. The town was quiet again, but not the kind of quiet that forgets, the kind that remembers and honors. Katie stopped by just before dusk. She left a paper bag on the porch: warm soup, half a loaf of bread, and a folded note. "Same recipe your mama used. You're not alone anymore." Elijah chuckled, picked up the bag, Saturday back, looked at the stars. He didn't need a speech, never wanted a parade. He just wanted to be seen. And now he had been. He reached down and scratched gently behind Echo's ears. "You found me when even I didn't know where I was," he whispered. "Guess that makes you the real hero." The dog's tail thumped once against the porch floor, then stilled. As he drifted off, Elijah leaned back. The chair creaked beneath him like a house stretching its bones. For the first time in years, the wind didn't sound like distance. It sounded like home. If you believe some heroes never stop serving,